So we're standing on top of the roof of an old Kmart here in Las Vegas. And if you're wondering why the heck are we doing that, it's because my buddy AJ Osbourne and I are buying this and converting it to self-storage. So first off, why are we on the roof right now?
So the roof is actually a great place to start because on these buildings, particularly the vacant Kmart buildings, most of our problems are going to come out of the roof. The roof needs to be replaced. We have all of these HVACs that are incredibly expensive and old. And when you get these old buildings, a lot of times the repair to the roof and the HVACs deteriorate quickly. And those are big ticket items for us. And if we're gonna build anything through it, like a road or a drive off, we're gonna have to put new ventilation systems as well through the roof. So we really wanna get an idea of the cost and the condition of the building from the top first.
Yeah, so speaking of cost and acquisition and the building and how much we're putting into it, I'm gonna tell you about that later on in the video. But since we're already here on the roof doing our due diligence, like, you were telling me one of these is pretty costly to repair.
Yeah, so they have a few different types of units, as you can see on these AC units up on the roof. Now, some of the older ones are decommissioned. They've installed in about 2009, they installed a bunch of these larger ones. But if they hadn't kept up service and we need to go through and reinstall or get new ones, it's gonna be about $500,000. So it's something we really wanna make sure we get right.
All right, so we're out of the wind. We're inside of this building. It's over 120,000 square feet. This ain't your first rodeo, dude. How many self-storage units do you guys own right now?
So we own over 20 facilities. That's over 2 million net rentable square feet and over 10,000 doors. And that's across about 11 states.
Yeah, and for those of you who want to learn more about AJ, he was actually on my podcast a little while back, and him and I were talking about doing a deal together, and he called me about a couple weeks ago and said, hey dude, I got a deal in Vegas. I think you're gonna be interested in it. And sure enough, I'm very interested. This is super cool. So this ain't your first time converting a Kmart either.
That's correct, yeah. We did one about 5 years ago that we found also, funny enough, in Nevada, but it was in Reno.
Yep.
And we built that out. It cost about $8 million for us to do all of it. That means buying the buildings, the land. What we did is we sold the land off,
okay,
and then we built the interior into it. We put $2 million into it, $8 million cost. We have it under contract right now for $35 million to sell.
You were all in at $8 million. How long ago did you buy this?
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years ago,
yeah.
And now somebody's gonna pay what?
$35 million.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's freaking crazy. And just the same thing as this, just converting a Kmart.
Identical.
Yeah. So right now this is an old Kmart we're in, but they've obviously turned it into a warehouse for all these appliances and everything else. Like, what would happen? Like, what's the process to converting this thing?
So there's a few things. We obviously have, first and foremost, the legal process that we have to go to get it approved and zoned for the usage that we want out of the building. From there, we're really looking at a way that we can maximize square footage, but also facilitate access for the customers. So we're looking at when we come in and access this building, how are we gonna access it? Are we gonna access it through a drive aisle? Meaning we'll actually blow out the walls and create a road through the middle of the building.
Like right where we're at right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty middle.
Yeah, and you'd have drop-off areas that would go into the units. Everything would be climate controlled and concealed. Big doors that would open and close as the cars came in and out, so the customers can be out of the weather, they can come use it, pull right up to their unit and unload.
Yeah. So how many units do you think would fit in here?
So in this facility, it really depends on size that we're using, but we'll probably shoot for around 800 units in this building.
Wow. So let's talk about numbers real quick, because the deal is crazy. And you know, I know there's a lot of ways we can structure it because there is so much land just around this building. We had initially even talked about developing the land into brand new multifamily around this. Mm-hmm. There's so many options, but what's cool to me is looking at it, you know, these Kmarts had huge parking lots,
yes,
which you obviously don't need for self-storage.
Nope.
And so it's like, what do we do with the parking lot? How do we monetize that? Do we sell it off like you did in, you know, your Reno deal? Do we save it for another project down the road? Do we sell that and make our basis into this deal lower?
Yeah. there's so many options. And that's the great thing because too, we can control the outcome. Meaning like in Reno, we did high density, multifamily up 4 floors. So we made a contract with the owners of the property that's the usage they would do. That's instant customers. So the moment that was all built out, we just saw a huge uptick in our occupancy. So it gives us our ability to control the assets and say, do we want to participate? Do we want to build out these other asset classes alongside it? And how do we work together with the two, the storage and multifamily, to make the whole entire project a really big success?
Yeah, so how much do we have this property under contract for?
So right now we have this property under contract for about $13 million.
And what's it going to cost to convert this to what we need?
So in this market, we think somewhere between 15 to 20 million total in. So when we started in Reno, we were at under probably about 80 cents a square foot a month. Here, we're at $1.80.
Right.
So the revenue associated with this asset, as opposed to others, is easily double what we've seen. So at this point, we can choose the land, we can sell it off, right? We can reduce our overall cost basis and maybe get it to 15 million, or we can use that to build out. So it'll really depend on that land piece, what we decide to do with it.
What we decide to do. And let's just say worst case scenario, we just keep the land for ourselves or something later. We're all into this building for 20 million, right? Like, what's this thing worth?
Well, over 40, probably about 50 million.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I flipped so many houses to try and make, a few million. And I think I'm pretty good at flipping houses.
Yeah.
And then I hear this number and I'm like, this one deal could probably make 20 million, 30 million, and, it'll be good.
Yeah. They're crazy.
Yeah.
It's these are unique opportunities that we find because what we're doing is we're taking the utilization of an asset class that today's standards, its utilization or the revenue it can produce is extraordinarily low. And we don't have to do a whole lot to dramatically increase that revenue, which changes the valuation completely and how it's viewed, how it's held, the source of the revenue, and how much. It's an easy transition for us to do with huge gains.
So let's talk a little bit about the management of storage, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about converting this thing and, we'll do that on our side and get it ready. But I've noticed there's companies like Life Storage and stuff that will come in and manage it for you. Like, how involved would a company like that be?
Yeah, so when you're looking at third-party management and bringing other people in, the biggest thing that you got to look at is, first of all, how much from the start are they going to have an impact? Because when we're doing for a project like this, the value is really determined by the operations or the management of it.
Right.
So we're looking at individual unit types, customers, pays. The management of these assets is, it's make it or break it. It really is. And if you don't have that coordinated from the very first, you could actually build a product in which can't be maximized at full capacity, and that really hurts you on the revenue.
Right. So obviously the management's important. Those companies like Life Storage, they're not the ones who are actually buying this. They're just kind of the management company, right? So who would be the buyer? So
the buyer, people that come in and buy it, first of all, those are REITs. In this market, which is great because we're in a first-tier market, there are lots of REITs. You have public storage, extra space. You also have major funds. So the advent of third-party management allowed huge capital, Wall Street and everybody in between, to buy these assets.
Right.
So we have REITs, Wall Street, private equity funds, and everybody alike that is clamoring after these assets right now.
That makes complete sense. I'll tell you, I used to flip couches, and so I remember doing everything out of a storage unit for years, and I just saw what they did. I was like, man, it doesn't take a ton of people to manage storage. No one's ever here. It's they had just the one guy at the front desk.
Yep.
That was pretty much it. I was like, dude, this is a cash cow.
Yes.
And as I finally got out of couch flipping, I said, one day I'm going to own a storage unit. And, I didn't know that it would be in Vegas, but I just remember seeing the business. I'm like, man, that's where it's at. And then it became a lot more popular as years went on.
Yeah.
It wasn't an asset class that people were really thrilled about when I was flipping couches, 8 years ago.
Yeah, not at all. It's really, really changed, and demand for this asset type has absolutely skyrocketed as people have seen the margins and how stable that revenue is, and the actual rent increases that we get with very little effect to the overall occupancy of the asset. It's very resilient.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I noticed around here was another storage unit. So how concerned are you about that with competition?
Yeah, so we're very, very concerned with supply. So not so much competition as supply, meaning that if a market is oversupplied, there's very little we can do with that. But if there's demand and there's no supply, competition is irrelevant.
Right.
So we have one across the street, but they're 98% full. If somebody wants to come and get a 10 by 20, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So competition doesn't matter when you have high demand.
Right, and I can tell you out here, the demand is really high. They're doing a lot of new development. I own quite a few rental properties in this area. In fact, when you had called me, I was actually on the way to go film at one of those rental properties. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm right down the street. Like, let me go check it out.
So crazy.
Yeah, so, dude, I'm excited for this deal. Like, it's insane. And, like, just the opportunities, not only with this building, but the land are super cool.
Really cool. It is so unique, and there's not a lot of properties that I've actually found that has this kind of proposition of a utilization of the existing building plus the excess land that can be utilized.
Yeah.
Normally you're looking at tearing it down, or you only have use of one, but for us, we actually have a lot of use for the land, and we can utilize the existing building, and in real estate, that's rare.
Yeah, so what are the steps we need to do? I think we need to have a zoning change approved, right?
Yes.
How
That's
difficult
right.
do you think that is?
Well, it can be very difficult. Luckily for us, we have a great relationship with an attorney who represents us with the city, that's specifically what they do. We've already been in talks with them, and they can move that along. And that can be challenging depending on what you're going into. Luckily for us, the deal is contingent on being approved.
Yeah.
So if the deal isn't approved,
Whatever.
doesn't matter.
So, but I mean, we're pretty confident. It's
Yes.
You know. So along with that, how long does it take to actually get this thing converted?
So that's one of the best parts, because it's not ground up and it's all indoor. Really, when you look around, the poles don't move.
Yep.
You get rid of everything in it. We may get rid of the ceiling tiles. Other than that, they're building storage units in here, and it's kind of like Tetris. It's just
get
like
the
click,
aluminum
click.
walls. Like,
Yep.
where do we want them?
Exactly. It cuts out half the development time.
Yeah. So how
So-
long do you think?
After zoning, 6-8 months.
Really?
Yeah.
That fast?
Yeah.
That's insane. And then from there, obviously, you got to get it occupied and all
Yep.
that stuff.
And then we
so-
go through stabilization. On a lot of these projects, you're looking at a 3 to 4 year time frame. Now, on our other one, we stabilized that in 8 months, and we built it. It was probably about a year and a half.
Okay.
So after approved and everything, we started building, and within a year and a half, we were cash flow positive and everything.
Wow, dude, I'm excited for this. So
It's awesome.
I really appreciate you, bringing the deal to my attention. And for anybody who wants to invest in this deal, all you have to do is be an accredited investor and go to pinedacapital.com. I'll link to it down below in the description. You can apply to be in on this deal. It's going to be probably one of my favorite deals we've ever done to this point, just because it's in my backyard and it's so unique.
Yes.
And I'll be filming a lot of content along the way as this progresses, because it's going to be pretty crazy.
It's amazing to see. It's a pretty cool overall experience, and it's shocking at how profitable these things are when done right. So it's an exciting property.
Yeah. Well, now a lot more people are going to know about this strategy. So
Yes,
we might have more competition, but we're gonna surely crush it on this one.
100%.
Well, cool, dude. I appreciate you
sure, man.
partnering with me on this one. It's gonna be
Happy to do
epic,
it.
man. So guys, make sure you go to Pineda Capital. Make sure you're subscribed so you can see how this all plays out. Thanks for watching.